The stars were burning, not with their natural light, but with the fires of war. Ambassador Velith stood at the tall window of the council chamber and watched another ship fall from the sky. It crashed somewhere beyond the mountains, leaving a trail of black smoke against the purple sunset. That was the third one today. Yesterday, there had been 7. The Korathi had ruled these stars for 10,000 years. They had built cities that floated in the clouds. They had created music that could make other species weep with joy. They had mapped the secrets of the universe and believed they understood everything worth knowing, but they had not understood the devourer swarm. The swarm had come from the dark spaces between galaxies. Nobody knew where they started or why they hungered. They were not a species that wanted land or resources or power. They simply consumed. They ate worlds. They ate civilizations. They ate everything, and they were never satisfied. Velith turned away from the window. The council members sat in their ancient seats, their faces gray with fear and exhaustion. Commander Orath stood near the door, his military uniform torn and dirty from the latest battle. He had not slept in 4 days. 7 colonies gone, Orath said. His voice was flat, empty of hope. The fleet at Morath Station has fallen. We have perhaps 60 ships remaining. The swarm has thousands. Then we must negotiate, said one of the elder council members. Surely they want something. Everyone wants something. Orath laughed, but there was no humor in it. They want to eat us. That is what they want. You cannot negotiate with hunger. Velith stepped forward. She had been thinking about this for weeks, ever since the first colony fell. The idea was shameful. It was humiliating. But shame meant nothing when your entire species was about to die. There is another option, she said. We could ask for help. The council chamber went silent. Then, slowly, the elder who had spoken before shook his head. From whom? The Pelori are too weak. The Vithani are too far. The crystalline minds do not care about flesh beings. I was not thinking of them, Velith said. She took a deep breath. I was thinking of the humans. The silence that followed was different. It was the silence of shock, of disbelief, of offense. Orath actually took a step backward, as if Velith had suggested something obscene. The humans, he repeated. You want us to beg for help from the humans. They are strong. They are many. They have ships and weapons. They are children, another council member shouted. They have been in space for only 300 years. We were building empires when they were living in caves and hitting each other with rocks. They are violent and crude, added another. They fight among themselves constantly. They have no culture, no refinement, no wisdom. Velith listened to all of this. She had said these same things herself, many times. The Korathi had always looked down on humanity. They were the loud neighbors who played their music too loud and never learned proper manners. They were the young species that everyone expected to destroy themselves within a few centuries, as young species often did. But Velith had also read the reports. She knew things about humans that most Korathi ignored. They stopped the Vorn invasion, she said quietly, alone, when no one would help them. The Vorn were nothing compared to the swarm. They have survived everything that has tried to kill them. Disease, war, their own weapons. They are still here. They are still growing. Velith looked around the chamber. We laughed at them for being violent. But right now, I think violence is exactly what we need. Commander Orath shook his head. Even if they would help, they would never arrive in time. And why would they help? We have never been kind to them. We blocked their expansion into the Terral sector. We refused to share our medical technology when the plague struck their colony on New Busan. We have treated them like pests. I know, Velith said. But I am going to ask anyway, because if I do not, we will all die. And I would rather be humiliated than extinct. She did not wait for the council to vote. She walked out of the chamber and went straight to the communication center. The young operator there, Pella, looked up with wide eyes. Pella was a historian, assigned to record the final days of the Korathi Collective. She had not expected to witness the ambassador herself. "Open a channel to Earth," Velith said. "Maximum power. I want them to hear this clearly." Pella's hands trembled as she worked the controls. "The channel is open." "Ambassador." Velith stood before the transmitter. She thought about what to say. She thought about pride and history and 10,000 years of looking down on the young species from the third planet of an unremarkable star. Then she thought about the burning ships, and the falling cities, and the children who would never grow up. "People of Earth," she began. "This is Ambassador Velith of the Korathi Collective. We are dying. An enemy we cannot defeat is destroying our worlds one by one. We have been proud. We have been foolish. We have not been good neighbors to you. But I am asking, begging, for your help. Please, if there is any kindness in your hearts, any mercy, any strength to spare, we need it now. We need it desperately. Please help us." She ended the transmission and stood there, waiting. Pella watched her with tears in her eyes. Days passed. Then weeks. The communication array remained silent. No response came from Earth. No ships appeared in the sky. Nothing. Another colony fell. On the 28th day of waiting, Velith stood once again at the window of the council chamber. The sky was dark, with smoke, and the distant shapes of swarm ships. Orath stood beside her, his face bitter with vindication. "I told you," he said. "They do not care. No one cares. We will die alone." Velith watched the sky and felt her heart break. She had believed, somehow, that the humans would surprise her. She had hoped that all the stories about their stubbornness, their refusal to give up, their strange loyalty to causes that were not their own, she had hoped those stories were true. But the stars remained empty. The humans had heard her cry for help, and they had chosen to ignore it. "Yes," she whispered. "We will die alone." She did not know how wrong she was. Hana played the message again. She had listened to it 47 times now, and each time it made her feel the same way. The alien woman's voice was full of fear and desperation. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of an entire civilization begging to survive. She was sitting in the small office of Admiral Do-hyun, aboard the orbital station that circled Earth. The Admiral sat behind his desk, his face calm and unreadable. Beside him stood Yuna, the Chief Strategic Officer, her sharp eyes studying a tablet full of data. "The message is genuine," Hana said. "I have verified it 17 ways. The Korathi are really dying." "We know," Do-hyun said. "We have been watching." Hana blinked. "Then why have we not responded? Why have we not sent help?" I, 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 I. Yuna looked up from her tablet. "Because sending help right now would be suicide. The Korathi have 60 ships left. The swarm has over 8,000. If we send our fleet, we lose our fleet. Then the swarm comes here, and we have nothing left to fight with. So we just let them die? No," Do-hyun said. He stood up and walked to the window. Earth hung below them, blue and green and beautiful. Millions of people lived down there, trusting that someone was protecting them. "We do not let them die. We prepare." He touched a control on his desk. A holographic display appeared in the center of the room. It showed a map of human space. Every colony, every station, every shipyard. Red lines connected them all, showing supply routes and communication networks. "The swarm will not stop at the Korathi," Do-hyun said. "Our analysts agree. Once they finish consuming Korathi space, they will come for us. We have 18 months, maybe less. Hana felt cold. 18 months until they reach Earth? 18 months until they reach our outer colonies. Earth itself, perhaps 2 years. Do-hyun turned to face her. If we send 100 ships to help the Korathi now, we lose those ships. The Korathi still fall. And we face the swarm with 100 fewer ships. That is not strategy. That is emotion. The Admiral is right, Yuna said. She pulled up new data on her tablet. But we are not doing nothing. We are doing something that no species in this galaxy has ever done. We are uniting. She showed Hana the numbers. Every human colony had agreed to emergency production protocols. Mining operations had tripled. Shipyards were running day and night. Scientists from a dozen different nations were working together on weapons that had only existed in theory. We received the Korathi message 28 days ago, Yuna said. In those 28 days, we have started construction on 300 new warships. We have designed and begun building a weapons system that can destroy an entire fleet in one shot. We have drafted every able pilot, every engineer, every soldier. Hana shook her head. But the Korathi think we have abandoned them. The whole galaxy thinks we are cowards. Let them think that, Do-hyun said. Let them believe we are hiding in fear. The swarm will believe it too. They will not prepare for us. They will not see us coming. And the Korathi, they will all die before we are ready. Do-hyun was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. Some will die. Many will die. I wish I could save them all. But if I send help now, everyone dies. Humans, Korathi, everyone. The only way to save anyone is to wait, to build, to prepare. He looked at Hana with eyes that carried a heavy burden. This is the hardest decision I have ever made, but it is the right one. 3 weeks later, the silence protocol began. All non-essential communications were shut down. Human colonies stopped talking to each other through normal channels. From the outside, it looked like humanity had retreated into their shells, terrified of the coming storm. The galaxy noticed. Other species whispered to each other about the cowardly humans. They had always known. Humanity was weak. They said, all that violence, all that noise, and when a real threat appeared, they hid like children. The Korathi heard these whispers too. Ambassador Velith felt betrayed. She had believed in humans, and they had proven to be exactly what everyone said they were. But in the shipyards of Mars, something was growing. Captain Sunho stood on the observation deck and watched the skeleton of a massive ship take shape. He had commanded vessels for 30 years. He had never seen anything like this. The Time's Eternal Dawn *, said a voice behind him. It was Tae-woo, the chief engineer, a man with grease on his hands and fire in his eyes. She will be the flagship. Biggest ship humanity has ever built. And she will carry the Sunbreaker. The weapon you have been designing? It is more than a weapon. Tae-woo handed Sunho a tablet showing the specifications. It targets the connection between swarm creatures. They share one mind? Yes, one queen controlling billions of drones. The Sunbreaker does not kill the drones. It kills the connection. Cut the strings, and the puppets fall. Sunho studied the data. You are certain it will work? I am certain of nothing, but I believe it will work. And belief is all we have right now. Around them, thousands of workers moved through the shipyard. Welders and engineers, programmers and pilots. They came from every nation on Earth, every colony in human space. They did not fight over borders or politics or old grudges. They worked together because they understood something very simple. If they failed, there would be no tomorrow. No arguments to win. No flags to wave. Nothing but silence and the endless hunger of the swarm. In her small quarters, Yuna worked through the night, planning the battle that would come. She knew the Korathi military strategy. She knew the swarm's attack patterns, she saw the shape of the war in her mind, and she found the places where humanity could win. It would not be easy. It would not be clean. Many would die. But they could win, if they were smart, if they were brave, if they were willing to do what no one expected. Admiral Do-hyun found her there at dawn, still working. He brought her coffee and sat beside her. "The fleet will be ready in 2 months," he said. "Faster than we hoped. It will have to be." Yuna replied. "The Korathi are down to their last 3 worlds. If we wait much longer, there will be no one left to save. Then we do not wait much longer." Do-hyun looked at her plans, her strategies, her careful calculations of death and victory. "When we arrive, what do you think they will feel?" 7. And crop about. "We 7. Yuna smiled, and there was something fierce in it, something very human. "First, they will feel confused. Then, they will feel hope. And then, if we do this right, they will feel something they have never felt before when they look at us." "What is that?" "Gratitude." She paused. "And maybe a little bit of fear. The healthy kind. The kind that makes you glad someone is on your side." Do-hyun nodded slowly. The galaxy had underestimated humanity. The Korathi had dismissed them. The swarm did not even consider them a threat. They were all about to learn how wrong they were. The last city was burning. Pella stood on the roof of the historical archives, watching the flames spread across the eastern district. She held a recording device in her hands, capturing everything. This was her duty now. Not to fight, because she was not a soldier. Not to lead, because she was not a politician. Her duty was to remember, to record, to make sure that when the Korathi were gone, something of them would remain. "The date is the 43rd day of the siege," she spoke into the device. "The swarm has taken the northern continent. Sereth 4 is the last of our major worlds. The colony on Velos 3 fell yesterday. The station at Korath Point fell this morning. We are alone now. Truly alone." Below her, refugees filled the streets. Families carrying whatever they could hold. Children crying for parents they would never see again. Old ones walking slowly, knowing they would not reach safety but walking anyway because stopping meant giving up. Commander Orath had pulled all remaining forces back to the capital city. 60,000 soldiers against 1 billion swarm creatures. The math was simple and terrible. They would fight, they would kill many, and then they would die. Ambassador Velith had not left the communication center in 3 days. She sat before the silent array, waiting for a response that would never come. Pella had visited her once and found her staring at nothing, her eyes empty. "They are not coming," Velith had whispered. "I was a fool to hope." Pella had not known what to say, so she had said nothing, and left the ambassador to her grief. Now, standing on the roof, Pella turned her device toward the sky. The swarm ships hung there like a dark cloud, blocking the stars. Thousands of them, millions of them, more than anyone could count. "The end is coming," she said. "I do not know if anyone will ever hear this recording, but if you do, please know that we tried. We were proud. Perhaps too proud. But we loved our children, and our art, and our songs. We were not perfect, but we were alive. And now, we will not be." She was about to continue when something caught her eye. A light, at the edge of the swarm formation. It was different from the others. It was not the sick green glow of swarm ships. It was blue. A bright, clean blue that she had never seen before. Pella adjusted her recording device, zooming in on the light. As she watched, the light grew bigger. No, not bigger. Closer. Something was coming through the swarm line, and the swarm was not stopping it. She ran, down the stairs, through the archives, out into the street. She pushed through the crowds of refugees, ignoring their cries of confusion. She ran all the way to the military command center, where Orath stood before a wall of tactical displays. "Commander!" she shouted. "Something is coming! From above, through the swarm!" Orath turned to her with tired, angry eyes. "No, you do not understand. It is not swarm. It is something else. Something blue." One of the tactical officers suddenly straightened. "Sir, I am detecting an unknown vessel. Small. Fast. It just appeared. Right in the middle of the swarm formation. Appeared. Ships do not just appear. This one did. It is heading toward the surface. The swarm is not attacking it." Orath walked to the display, his face twisted with confusion. "Why would the swarm ignore an unknown ship?" The officer shook his head. "I do not know, sir, but the ship is broadcasting a signal. It is asking for landing permission. And, sir," he looked up at Orath with wide eyes, "it is human." The ship landed in the central plaza, right in the middle of the chaos. Soldiers surrounded it, weapons raised. Refugees scattered in fear. Pella pushed to the front of the crowd, her recording device capturing everything. The ship was small and sleek, built for speed rather than combat. Its hull was gray and unmarked, giving nothing away. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, a door opened, and a man stepped out. He was human. Average height. Average build. He wore a simple uniform with no decorations or medals. His face was calm, almost peaceful, as if he had not just flown through an army of monsters. Commander Orath stepped forward, his weapon trained on the human's chest. "Identify yourself. My name is Captain Sunho of the United Earth Defense Force." He spoke slowly and clearly, as if he had practiced the Korathi language. "I am here to deliver a message from Admiral Dohyun to Ambassador Velith. The humans sent a single man? This is your help? One man in one small ship?" Sunho did not react to the anger in Orath's voice. "This is not our help, Commander. This is our announcement. The help is coming." Before Orath could respond, another figure pushed through the crowd. It was Velith. She looked terrible. Her clothes were wrinkled, her eyes red, her face pale. But when she saw Sunho, something flickered in those tired eyes. Something that might have been hope. "You came," she said. "We sent our message 2 months ago. We thought you had abandoned us. We thought you had abandoned us." "We received your message," Sunho said. He reached into his uniform and pulled out a small device. Admiral Dohyun recorded a response. He asked me to deliver it personally. He pressed a button, and a holographic image appeared. A human man, older, with gray hair and a serious face. He began to speak. "Ambassador Velith, I am Admiral Dohyun. I apologize for our silence. I know you believed we had abandoned you. I know your people have suffered while we said nothing. But I need you to understand something about humanity. We do not believe in small gestures. We do not send token forces to die bravely and accomplish nothing. When we fight to win, and winning takes preparation." The image shifted, showing shipyards full of vessels, soldiers training, scientists working. Velith watched with growing disbelief. For the past 2 months, every human colony has been working toward a single goal. We have built a fleet. We have designed weapons specifically to destroy the swarm. We have prepared for a war that we intend to end, not just fight. And now we are ready. Dohyun's face returned to the image. His eyes were hard and determined. "Captain Sunho will give you specific instructions. I need you to evacuate all civilians to the southern hemisphere of Sereth 4 within 48 hours. The northern hemisphere will become a battlefield. I cannot promise that everyone will survive, but I can promise you this. The swarm will learn what happens when they threaten those under humanity's protection. We are coming, Ambassador. All of us. And we are bringing the fire." The hologram faded. Velith stood frozen, tears running down her face. Orath's weapon had dropped to his side. Forgotten. Pella recorded it all. The shock, the disbelief, the slow dawning of hope on faces that had forgotten how to hope. "How many ships?" Velith finally asked. Sunho smiled. It was the first emotion he had shown. 800. With more on the way. 800. Orath's voice cracked. That is impossible. You did not have 800 warships 2 months ago. We do now. Sunho looked up at the sky, at the dark mass of the swarm. And we have something else. Something we built just for them. Admiral Do-hyun calls it the Sunbreaker. What does it do? Sunho's smile widened. You will see. In 3 days, everyone will see. I suggest you start the evacuation now, Commander. When the battle begins, you will want to be far away from the northern hemisphere. He turned and walked back toward his ship. Velith called after him. Captain, why? Why help us after everything? We have not been kind to your people. Sunho paused at the door of his ship. He looked back at her, and his smile faded into something more serious, more human. Because you asked, he said. Because you needed help. And because humanity does not leave people to die alone. Not even people who have not been kind to us. He shrugged. Besides, the swarm was coming for us eventually. We would rather fight them here, with allies, than fight them alone, at Earth. This is not charity, Ambassador. This is strategy. And maybe, he paused, maybe, a little bit of kindness. I wants. Maybe. I wants. I wants. I wants. I wants. I wants. I wants. He climbed into his ship and flew away, back through the swarm, back toward wherever the human fleet was waiting. Pella stopped her recording. Her hands were shaking. She had come here to document the end of her people. Instead, she had witnessed something else, entirely. Hope. Real hope. For the first time, in months, and somewhere in the dark between stars, 800 human ships began to move. The evacuation was chaos. Millions of Korathi fled south, carrying children and memories and nothing else. They moved through the night, and the day, and the night again, filling every road and every transport ship. Commander Orath directed the movement, while his soldiers held the line against swarm scouts. They lost hundreds of people to the attacks, but they saved millions more. Ambassador Velith stood at the southern command post, watching the refugee columns arrive. 48 hours, the human captain had said. It was not enough time. It could never be enough time. But they were trying. Pella stayed close to Velith, still recording. This was history now. Whatever happened next, the galaxy would want to know. The galaxy would need to know. Do you believe them? Pella asked. Do you believe the humans will really come? Velith did not answer immediately. She watched an elderly Korathi being carried by 2 young soldiers. The old one was singing, a quiet song from ancient times, a song about stars and hope and the light that comes after darkness. I did not believe anything 2 days ago, Velith said. I had given up. But that human captain, Sunho, he flew through the entire swarm alone. He landed on our world knowing he might never leave. That is not the behavior of cowards. That is not the behavior of people who lie. The swarm is massing, Orath reported over the communication system. Their full force is gathering above the northern hemisphere. Billions of creatures, the largest concentration we have ever seen. They are preparing to end us. How long? Velith asked. Hours. Maybe. Less. Pella looked up at the sky. It was dark with swarm ships, blocking out the stars. The air smelled of smoke and fear. Around her, refugees whispered prayers to gods who seemed very far away. Then, at the edge of the sky, something changed. It started as a flicker. A distortion in the darkness, like heat rising from hot stone. Then another. And another. Dozens of them. Hundreds. The distortions grew brighter, wider, tearing holes in the fabric of space itself. "What is that?" someone screamed. "Is it the swarm? Are there more of them?" But Pella knew it was not the swarm. She had seen the swarm arrive many times. This was different. This was something new. The first human ship emerged from the largest distortion. It was enormous, bigger than any Korathi vessel, bigger than most space stations. Its hull was covered in weapons, hundreds of them, all pointed forward. Its name was written on the side in human letters. Asterisk. Eternal Dawn. Asterisk. Behind it came more ships, destroyers and cruisers and carriers and gunboats. They poured through the distortions like water through broken walls. 10 ships, 50, 100, 200. The stream seemed endless. Valeth counted as best she could. When she reached 500, she stopped. There were too many. Far too many. A transmission crackled through every communication system on the planet. A human voice, calm and strong. "This is Admiral Do-hyun of the United Earth Defense Force. We have come in response to your call for help. All Korathi forces, fall back to protected positions. Do not engage the enemy. Repeat, do not engage. This fight belongs to us now." The swarm reacted instantly. Millions of bioships turned toward the human fleet, their weapons charging with sick green light. The hive mind recognized a new threat and responded the only way it knew how, with overwhelming force. But the humans did not retreat. They did not hesitate. They flew straight into the storm. The battle began. Aboard the Times Eternal Dawn *, Captain Sunho commanded the lead assault group. His ship shook as antimatter cannons fired, sending waves of destruction into the swarm formations. Around him, pilots and gunners worked with focused intensity. "Group 7, target the cluster at bearing 42, Sunho ordered. "Group 12, cover the eastern flank. Do not let them surround us." On a different deck, Yuna stood in the tactical center, her eyes fixed on a massive holographic display. She saw everything. Every ship, every movement, every opportunity. Her mind worked faster than any computer, finding patterns in the chaos. "Admiral," she said into her communicator, "the swarm is concentrating 60% of their forces on our center. They expect us to hold formation. I recommend we let them push us back." "Let them push us back?" Do-hyun's voice was curious, not critical. He trusted Yuna. He had always trusted Yuna. "They are forming a dense cluster, perfect for the Sunbreaker, but we need them tighter, more concentrated. If they believe they are winning, they will commit fully. And if we fall back too far, then we lose half our fleet, and probably the entire battle." Yuna's voice was steady. "But we will not fall back too far. I know exactly how far to go." Do-hyun was silent for a moment. Then, "All ships, execute tactical retreat pattern Yuna 7. Fall back to the marked positions. Let them come." The human fleet began to pull back. The swarm pursued, sensing victory. Their ships crowded together, eager to consume the retreating enemy. Millions of bioships formed a massive ball of green death, pushing toward the human lines. On the surface, the Korathi watched in horror. Orath's hands gripped his command console until his knuckles turned white. "They are losing," he said. "The humans are falling back. They cannot." "Wait," Velith said. She remembered what Admiral Do-hyun had told her. Humanity did not believe in half measures. They did not fight to fight. They fought to win. Just wait. In the heart of the Times Eternal Dawn *, Taewoo sat before the controls of the Sunbreaker. The weapon filled an entire deck of the ship. It had taken 1,000 engineers 6 weeks to build. Nobody knew if it would work. Nobody could know until they tried. "Admiral," Taewoo reported, "the Sunbreaker is charged and ready, targeting the center of the swarm mass. On your order. On the main bridge, Do-hyun watched the battle unfold. The swarm was exactly where Yuna had predicted. Concentrated, committed, blind with hunger and confidence. Now, he said. Tae-woo pressed the activation control. The Sunbreaker did not fire a beam of light. It did not launch missiles or release energy. What it did was far simpler and far more terrible. It sent out a pulse, a single pulse of carefully designed frequencies that traveled at the speed of light in all directions. The pulse hit the swarm. For one heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the screaming began. Not physical screaming. Something worse. The swarm shared one mind. Billions of creatures connected to one queen. One consciousness. The Sunbreaker did not kill that consciousness. It cut it. It severed every connection between the queen and her drones. In one instant, billions of creatures went from being parts of a whole to being alone. Completely, utterly alone. The effect was immediate and devastating. Swarm ships stopped firing. Some crashed into each other. Some flew in random directions, their pilots suddenly without purpose or control. Some simply went dark, their crews dying instantly from the shock of separation. Pella watched from the surface as the sky changed. The dark mass of the swarm broke apart. Green lights flickered and died. Ships fell from orbit, burning as they entered the atmosphere. "They are dying," she whispered. "They are all dying, but not all of them." The Sunbreaker had worked, but it was not perfect. Perhaps 20% of the swarm survived, their connections somehow intact. These remaining ships regrouped, still dangerous, still hungry. "Finish them," Do-hyun ordered. "All ships, full attack. Leave nothing alive." The human fleet stopped retreating and charged forward. Now, the battle was fair. 800 human ships against perhaps 1,000 swarm survivors. The humans had been waiting for this moment. They had trained for it. They had built weapons specifically designed for it. Sunho led the assault. His ship cut through swarm formations like a knife through paper. Beside him, dozens of other captains did the same. Hana, still aboard the listening station, coordinated communications between all human forces. Tae-woo monitored the Sunbreaker, ready to fire again if needed. The battle lasted 4 more hours. 4 hours of fire and death and desperate courage. Human ships were destroyed. Pilots died. Sacrifices were made. But slowly, steadily, the swarm fell. When the last swarm ship went dark, silence filled the space above Sereth 4. The human fleet floated among the debris, battered and bloody, but alive. Victorious. On the surface, the Korathi refugees emerged from their shelters. They looked up at the sky and saw stars for the first time in months. Real stars. The swarm was gone. Pella fell to her knees. She was crying, and she did not care. Around her, others were crying too. Soldiers and civilians and children. They were crying because they were alive, because they had been saved, because the universe had shown them something they never expected: mercy, from the species they had dismissed as primitive; strength, from the neighbors they had ignored and mocked; hope, from the darkness they had thought would consume them all. Ambassador Velith stood alone, looking up at the human ships. She remembered her desperate message, sent so many weeks ago. She remembered the silence that followed. She had thought that silence meant abandonment. Now she understood. The silence had meant something very different. It had meant, "Wait. We are coming. And when we arrive, nothing will stand against us." The humans had come, and they had done the impossible. Now everything would change. 1 year had passed since the Battle of Sereth 4. 1 year since the sky burned with human fire. 1 year since the swarm died, and the galaxy changed forever. Pella walked through the rebuilt streets of the capital city. New buildings rose where ruins had stood. Children played in parks that had once been battlefields. Life had returned to Sereth 4, slowly but surely, like flowers growing after a long winter. She carried her recording device, as always. But now, she was not documenting destruction. She was documenting something else entirely. The Galactic Council was meeting today. Not the old Korathi Council, which had ruled alone for 10,000 years. This was something new. Representatives from dozens of species had traveled to Sereth 4 to discuss the future, and at the center of those discussions, always, were the humans. Pella entered the Great Hall and found a seat near the back. The chamber was full. Korathi sat beside Pelori. Vethany diplomats argued politely with crystalline mind observers, and scattered throughout the crowd, wearing their simple gray uniforms, were humans. Ambassador Velith stood at the central podium. She looked different now. The despair that had hollowed her face was gone. In its place was something stronger, something wiser. 1 year ago, Velith began. I sent a message to Earth. I begged for help. I expected nothing. I received everything. The chamber was silent. Every eye was on her. The humans could have ignored us. We had given them every reason to. We had blocked their expansion. We had refused to share our knowledge. We had called them primitive and violent and unworthy of respect. And when we finally needed them, when we finally humbled ourselves to ask for help. She paused, looking across the gathered species. They did not say no. They did not send a token force to die alongside us. They sent everything. They built a fleet in 2 months. They developed weapons no one had ever imagined. They flew across the galaxy to fight an enemy that was not yet their problem. And when the battle was over, when the swarm was destroyed, they did not demand payment. They did not claim territory. They did not conquer us. Velith turned toward the human section of the chamber, where Admiral Dohyun sat with his officers. They helped us rebuild. They shared their technology. They asked for nothing except friendship. And now I understand something that I should have understood long ago. We were wrong about humanity. We were wrong about everything. Commander Orath sat near the front of the Korathi delegation. Pella had interviewed him the day before. He had told her things that surprised her. I spent my whole life believing humans were dangerous, he had said. Unstable, unpredictable. And I was right. They are all of those things. But I missed the most important part. They are dangerous and unstable, and unpredictable in defense of others. They do not fight for themselves alone. They fight for anyone who needs them. That is not a weakness. That is the greatest strength I have ever seen. Now, watching the council session, Pella saw Orath nod slowly as Velith spoke. The old warrior had changed. They all had changed. Captain Sunho was there too, sitting quietly beside Admiral Dohyun. He had become famous since the battle. The man who flew alone through the swarm. The man who delivered hope when there was none. But he did not act famous. He acted like a soldier who had done his job and wanted nothing more than to rest. Pella had tried to interview him. He had declined politely. There is nothing special about what I did, he had said. Any human would have done the same. We protect each other. We protect our friends. That is just who we are. The council session continued. Diplomats discussed trade agreements and mutual defense pacts and the formation of a new galactic alliance. Humans would be part of it. Not as junior members, as the Korathi had once assumed they would be. As equals, as leaders. After the formal session ended, Pella made her way through the crowd toward Admiral Dohyun. She had one question that she needed to ask. One question that had bothered her for an entire year. Dohyun saw her coming and smiled. He had a kind face, she realized. Not the face of a conqueror or a warrior. The face of someone who cared. Historian Pella, he said. I have seen your recordings. They are excellent work. You have preserved your people's story beautifully. Thank you, Admiral, but I have a question, if you will permit it. Of course. Pella activated her recording device. Why? The true reason. Why did humanity help us? We gave you nothing. We were not your allies. We were barely your acquaintances. You owed us nothing. Why did you come? Do-hyun was quiet for a moment. Around them, the noise of the crowd faded into background murmur. When he spoke, his voice was thoughtful. There are many reasons, strategic reasons. The swarm would have come for us eventually. Fighting them at Seraph 4 was smarter than fighting them at Earth. But you asked for the true reason, so I will give it to you. He looked at Pella with eyes that had seen too much war and too much death. Humanity has a long history. We have done terrible things to each other. Wars and cruelty and destruction that we are not proud of. But we have also done beautiful things. We have built cities and created art and raised children who are better than we were. And somewhere in our history, we learned something important. What did you learn? That the universe is cold and dark and full of dangers. That life is fragile and brief and precious. And that the only way to survive, the only way to make the darkness bearable, is to help each other. Not just humans helping humans. Everyone helping everyone. He smiled sadly. We are not perfect, historian. We make mistakes. We fight among ourselves. We can be selfish and cruel. But when we hear someone calling for help, when we see someone drowning in the dark, we cannot look away. It is not in our nature. Even when those people have been unkind to you, especially then. Because kindness is not a transaction. It is not something you give only to those who deserve it. Kindness is a choice. You choose to be kind because that is who you want to be, not because of what you will receive in return. Pella stopped her recording. She stood there for a moment, processing what she had heard. Then she bowed. A deep Korathi bow of respect. Thank you, Admiral, for everything. Thank you, historian, for remembering. Later that evening, Pella finished her final report. It was the last entry in her chronicle of the Swarm War. She had documented the fall, the despair, the silence, the arrival, the battle, and the aftermath. Now she needed to find the right words to end it. She thought about Velith's message, sent into the void. She thought about the weeks of silence that followed. She thought about Sunho's smile and Do-hyun's kindness, and the 800 ships that came when no one expected them. Finally, she began to write. We thought their silence meant they had abandoned us. We thought their violence meant they were primitive. We were wrong on both counts. They were silent because they were building. They were violent because they were protecting. The humans do not fight for glory. They do not conquer for power. They fight so that others will never have to. She paused, remembering the sight of human ships filling the sky. Remembering the moment when hope returned. Before the battle, I asked Captain Sunho what humanity wanted from us. He said they wanted nothing. He said they came because we asked. Because we needed help. Because that is what humans do. I did not believe him then. I believe him now. The galaxy has learned many lessons from the Battle of Seraph 4. We have learned that the swarm can be defeated. We have learned that unity is stronger than division. We have learned that help can come from unexpected places. But the most important lesson is simpler than all of that. When the darkness comes, when all hope seems lost, when you have nowhere else to turn, look to the humans. They will answer. They will fight. They will never abandon you. Not because they must, but because they choose to. That is who they are. That is what makes them human. Pella saved the recording and looked out her window at the night sky. The stars were bright and clean, no longer blocked by swarm ships. Somewhere out there, human vessels patrolled the borders, watching for new threats, protecting their friends, protecting the galaxy. She smiled and whispered a word she had learned from the human language. Thanks. Above her, the stars shone on.